tonight because the pressure to take the vaccine is mounting. More and more people are caving because they are tired of the fight. They are tired of being shamed, ostracized, and treated differently because they refuse to take a vaccine.
What this COVID is more of a tool. As big and bad as it is big and bad. There's a bigger, badder thing they want. They want to change the whole thing to where you have nothing.
And what is happening to us is not organic. It is deliberate. It is deliberate.
This virus is quite real and is quite man-made. There are 2 decades worth of papers and research with our monies spent to develop this virus to do exactly what it did, to be spread.
Yes, we should address this mandate of vaccination and other ideas that are targeted specifically at our liberties, but we still need to know what's going on from a larger point of view.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, just to, try to encourage people to ask why. That's the most, important thing. Ask why. And with this COVID now, ask why. And, do your own research.
Okay. SARS-CoV-2, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus number 2, for that particular breathing, inflammation, and blood clotting problem, is the 7th known coronavirus to infect humans. That virus, we have demonstrated, can be treated, but if you don't treat people with a bad infection and there's inflammation and blood clotting, people die. We've all lived with about 20 months of watching the planet die because they weren't treated.
And what do you think they can gain from something like that?
I would say mainly, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think population control, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I don't know why they think they need to lock down the planet for this. This is ridiculous. Other than it's purely political. It's purely just it was to get Trump out of office. It was to try and take control of the globe and ruin the entire world. And it's disgusting. It's really disgusting. Psychologically, there's been an influx of children that have passed away from killing themselves, suicide, and everything else. Yeah. Psychologically, we're conditioning these kids. I drove past a bus stop the other day with a bunch of high schoolers, and they were all 6 feet away outdoors wearing a mask, staring at their phone, ignoring everybody else. I remember when I was a kid, we'd go to the bus stop and we're like, hey, how's it going? Give me a hug. Yeah, what's up? Bullshitting with each other, telling each other silly jokes and whatever. These kids are not interacting. What we're doing psychologically is completely damaging our kids.
I would definitely say the masks are definitely a dehumanization. That's one thing I know that is part of the whole satanic agenda, and how they just want to dehumanize people and really just, it's just really hatred of humanity, really, and just it's nasty.
Yeah, it's kind of like covering up, they were made in the image of God, so it's kind of like covering that up. They're kind of disgusted by that. I think that's why they want to cover people's faces.
Also, they don't want people to speak, so it's in a way, it's a multitude of many different things in one little, hey, let's just put,
Yeah. But just to go back to that vaccine, what do you feel like the main concerns that people are having about getting the vaccine? What do you think
it's not tested enough.
It's not tested enough.
Okay, the vaccine has been tested for how many months now? They rolled it out in January, February of this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is an experiment.
Yeah.
Now they just announced that it's okay, that everybody should, it's approved by the FDA. Unfortunately, the trials are going to go on for another year and a half. It's a 2-year trial.
Something like that.
Right. It's a 2-year trial, which really to me is not long enough, but let's say it's 2 years. That means that you cannot approve it as unexperimental now. You have to say this is an experiment for at least until 2022, 2021, 2023. Okay, that's 2 years. If you don't test something for 2 years, what do you got?
Right.
You don't know.
You got a mystery.
You got a mystery, exactly. And they're telling you it's safe, they're lying.
Okay.
So that's easy.
That is easy.
I mean, that's super easy.
It's been well established that safe and effective vaccine development takes time and can mid and long-term safety data be acquired to determine potential risks and benefits of drug vaccine biologics. The manufacturers of the SARS-CoV-2 drug vaccine biologics understand and anticipate the risks associated with accelerated vaccine development and have thus insisted on immunity from liability for injury or death. AstraZeneca senior executive Rudd Dover stated, "This is a unique situation where, as a company, we simply cannot take the risk if in 4 years the vaccine is showing side effects."
When there's no liability with vaccines, it's a free-for-all. It's like you got 300 vaccines in the pipeline ready to come out due to the fact that nobody's liable. So, it's just so unfortunate that this is happening and it's continuing to happen and people are being deceived and hurt.
Remember back in college, all through working, what did they teach us? To use our autonomy, our critical thinking skills, challenge orders. So when they first started bribing us with money to take this shot, then they wanted to fire us because we didn't want to take the shot. We weren't comfortable with an experimental vaccine. That just blew my mind. Like, why are we not allowed to use our critical thinking and our autonomy now? I had a meeting with my CEO in CNO. My CEO literally looked at me in the face and he said 100% vaccination is more important than your individual autonomy. Yes, he said that with his own mouth, and he looked at me too. He literally said, y'all are all replaceable. If you don't like what you're doing, you can leave. We will find someone to fill your spot. And that's exactly what we did.
So you're not one to take something at face value.
Definitely not.
Exactly.
No,
yeah, and I feel like that makes sense.
No. When's the last time you heard the government telling you to take a vitamin? Have you ever heard the government tell you to take a vitamin? Well, guess who's taking 10 times the recommended daily allowance of vitamin D right now? Dr. Fauci. He admitted it one time when he was being interviewed on a live stream, so he was kind of like on the spot, right?
He was just talking.
He was on the fly.
Yes.
So he tells her, I'm taking vitamin D and vitamin C. Doesn't tell him how much. Somebody emails his office. He replies, oh yeah, 6,000 IU per day. That's 10 times the RDA. So he knows what the science is, vitamin D and your immune system.
He knows vitamin D is going to help.
Right. Now how many times has he told you? You? How many times?
Not once yet.
Never.
0.
I haven't heard it.
So that's called a lie of what?
I don't know. It's like not a direct lie, but it's just something he avoided
It's a
saying.
lie of omission.
That's a good way to put it.
Lie of omission. You can verify everything yourself. Just Google it.
Yeah.
All right. That is a smoking gun that they do not care. This is not about health.
So let's look at what they did for us. They developed drug vaccines. All right, come forward to 2019 with SARS coronavirus 2, of which there are 17 variants and 12 basic mutations.
Now, here's the thing. In the history of mankind, when doctors like myself gave you a vaccine, we took all the variants and we weakened them. And then we injected them into you. The reason why that's important is because the way your immune system works, it first needs to see the whole virus. That's the first part of the immune system. And then it needs to see all the different types of the virus. So that the purpose of being immunized is not to prevent you from getting infected. Never has been, and it never will be. The purpose of getting immunized is that when you become infected, your body will have seen it before and will take less time to react. So you'll probably get less sick. Alpha V1 is the original V1 version of SARS-CoV-2. And a tremendous amount of effort was put into by Pfizer and Moderna and Janssen and AstraZeneca and even Novavax, who decided that they would just inject the genetic material into the cells of moths, and the moths make the spike proteins. And God knows what else. Now, because of that, the immune response that occurred was to the alpha V1 spike protein. Not to the Delta variant, not to the Lambda variant. Now, what they have done is they have put pressure on the virus to push it towards the Delta and the Lambda variants. And if you look at the world data, and it shows exactly how the world stage has changed for this virus and what exists today versus what existed several months ago. The mass vaccine program has pressured the virus to have the Delta and Lambda variants, the dominant variants, which we no longer have an immune response to. The key to controlling the variant isn't to see if we can push a new variant out and chase our tails in 91 days with Pfizer. The key is to think about what we're doing to our patients and ourselves. So here's the document. Just as the indiscriminate use of antibiotics caused antibiotic-resistant infections, so too has the indiscriminate use of these drug vaccines, focusing on only one type of spike protein for alpha V1 variant of this virus, resulting in the promotion of more infectious variants of the virus. In accordance with the 1967 International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights Treaty, the 1947 Nuremberg Code, and the 1964 Declaration of Helsinki, informed consent for a medical treatment or intervention requires that a patient must be provided with sufficient information to make an informed decision regarding the risks and benefits of receiving or not receiving a treatment or intervention. Failure to obtain this informed consent is a violation of international treaty laws, human research codes, medical and legal ethics violations, and the rights of citizens in their individual nation states. Such violations are subject to criminal investigation and prosecution in the International Criminal Court and federal courts of the independent nation states. When the federal government interferes with the practice of medicine, they have stepped outside their constitutional authority. Read the U.S. Constitution. It says that treaty law is the supreme law of the land. If the President of the United States decides that you do not need informed consent, he is in violation of the U.S. Constitution. Any elected official who decides that is in violation of the U.S. Constitution. And the last time I checked, that equaled the definition of treason.
And so what we're seeing is a deliberate attempt on the part of the liberal left and the progressive movement in America to take advantage of our fear and crises.
Most people have undergone vaccination or quarantine or given up their liberties and civil rights because they were afraid.
I mean, a lot of the people you see around there are still
Right.
muzzled up.
They got that mask on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's up with that? Why do you think they got that mask on?
Oh, there's a lot of, I would definitely say just from the way the system in that general area is, it's very like this is the obey. It was more about obeying rather than learning. So that's kind of why I think a lot of people are like, oh, we gotta
kind of conform.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are kind of scared too up there.
But I mean, mostly a lot of people really have best intentions, though.
Yeah.
Overall, it's just kind of a little bit of a confusion.
This opponent are our fellow citizens. So this battle must be waged differently. It must be waged with consideration and compassion for our brothers and sisters in this country and in other states.
The people can be misled by the media, how hypnotic it is. And what I learned was the logical fallacies, how to adhere to logic, because that's a good way to navigate through this. Because they're using all kinds of things that are official. There's things called official logical fallacies. They used to be taught in school. They don't do it anymore. They go back to the Greeks. One would be the ad hominem, where I give you an argument that I want you to consider, and if you're not in good faith, you'll use an ad hominem, which means attack the person. So you'll say, well, you're an idiot anyway, or your shoes are purple, or whatever. Any irrelevant.
You listen to right-wing radio.
You listen to Ben Shapiro.
Right.
That guy sucks.
Exactly. That's ad hominem.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. So there's several of them that are used a lot. The straw man, where I say, well, this vaccine, we don't really know what's going on with it. It's not following the regular patterns, and it's more dangerous. And then you'll come back. So you're anti-vax and you're anti-science. Well, that's called straw man. It means I didn't say that. So straw man is you put up something that's easy to knock over. But I didn't say it.
Yeah.
I didn't say I'm anti-science. Anyway, so I learned about the logical fallacies because people use them against us, and I found out that there's an emotional level that the media has gotten to their brains. And it's not just the media. Now it's worse with all the cell phones constantly. People, the reality is so into the electronic world. Anyway, so you find out the logic is still our best way to kind of navigate towards the truth, and especially communicating. When I want to communicate with you, I can't have your emotion. If my mother died because of some reason, I still have to communicate with logic to you, and they're throwing that out.
And I thank you this year for being brave enough to put the mask mandate in place. I agree, it is not perfect. There is no perfect answer to this. This is an ever-evolving situation. But given what the options are, and I understand right now there's not funding for virtual learning, and I personally would do it again, even though I hated it, even though I know she would prefer to be in school. I would prefer her more than anything to never get this COVID thing. I'm very afraid of it. Given what we can do, I think masks are a great option, and maybe the only option to return to some semblance of normalcy. And I urge you, despite what you heard tonight, to continue to keep the mask mandate in place for all of our kids' safety and the well-being of Crowley ISD and the community. Thank you.
The more we are distracted with fear, by the way, the Bible says, I did not give you the spirit of fear. That's right. It's not from me. And if it's not from God, who is it from? Satan, your enemy. He said, but I gave you a sound mind and power and love. Use your sound mind for God's sake.
In chaos and disorder, I have never successfully seen a patient revived, a battle won, or a just cause successfully addressed.
Instead of just simply saying, you're wrong, it's not true, here's the reality, and here's what we believe. We jump down and start trying to argue with them, and they love it because they want chaos. The more we're chaotic about it, the more they're going to come in and take over. So I just want to give you that 30,000-foot view, because I want you not to leave here just thinking about our need to resist this vaccine. Our need is to resist the socialists in our country who are deliberately changing us while we're not looking.
But here's the good news. Just as a virus can be defeated with the right immune boosters and the good immune system and all the things you've already heard about, just as it can be treated with the things that this criminal government will not even talk about. Just as you can deal with a virus in that way, here's the good news. The virus of bad government and petty tyrants and this environment of civic ignorance can be treated and solved with civic literacy and a return to a passion for patriotism, to know our history, to know our Constitution, to know the principles in our Declaration of Independence, and once again love that liberty. We would not have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration if we didn't back up to we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator. So without God in the equation, without the concept of right and wrong, you do not get to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So here's something else too. So we're at a church and all that, and I feel like there's a lot of really spiritual, really religious people here. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that spirituality maybe is playing a role in this, or why do you think that spiritual people are more inclined to be against the vaccine?
Spirituality goes to the core of your being. Okay. If this is threatening the core of your being, it's going to be spiritual. Period.
Like, what does God mean to you? Like, what does it mean to worship God instead of the flesh, as you said?
Just the ultimate creator of the universe.
Yeah.
We're just the creation of Him. And we, we're the reason. God is the reason for everything.
Yeah.
Really. And I think people get confused, especially with things they teach in school and with, the scientific community and how much that's progressed in a certain direction.
Darwinism, feminism, communism, socialism, all those isms were created by men who hated God. You see, we gotta be bold. And boldness doesn't come from some idea that you are some strong, powerful, capable person. What emboldens me is what the Bible says. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. But because you don't know, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. That's what the Bible says. You don't know that you have power.
Yeah. We're trying to tell people they're not alone.
They're not alone.
Mainstream media is just raining down bullshit on you.
When you say not alone, what is this group of people? Is it maybe people that aren't into getting the vaccine, aren't into the COVID stuff?
Totally, yeah.
And I know you may feel like back home sometimes that you're alone. You may feel like you're in this fight by yourself, but look around you today. Right here is evidence. Right here is proof that you are not alone. You are surrounded by the brave. And just as Elijah cried out to God and said, I'm the only one left. And God said, no, there's 7,000 that have not bowed their knee to Baal. I'm telling you, there are millions who have not bowed their knee to the twin calves of unscience and government saving us.
And you are allowing a whim to push you around. How many of you remember that cartoon that WB would put out with the little dog running behind the big dog with the big dog? Oh, what you're so wonderful, wonderful. And the little dog. And he rounds the corner and a tiger beats him up. So when he comes and he sees a little cat, he thinks that little cat is the tiger that whipped him. So the big dog now is coward, and it's the little dog who's slapping the cat around. I'm telling you right now, you're the big dog. That's right. And you got a little cat slapping you around because you don't know who you are and what you have.
They try to make it look like it's one thing, like the ooky spooky. Like it's kind of like Scooby-Doo, It's like they want to make it. They want to make it look like it's like some ooky spooky, but it's like, oh no, it's just really some like janitor or something who just is up
Okay.
Do not let this petri dish of bad government and tyranny we're living in right now, void of moral absolutes and buying into the ideas that anything goes and everything's okay as long as government will take care of me. That's the environment. That's the petri dish where bad government and tyranny grows. Allow you to buy the lie that government can save you and that you're too stupid to make your own decisions. Do not buy their lies, and instead stand up and say, even if I'm the only one, I will do what God's called me to do. I will stand in the gap. I will be the catalyst for a restoration of freedom. The only way this insanity stops is if we stop it. If we stand up and say no more unconstitutional mandates, no more government controls over our health decisions, we will defend our bodily integrity and our medical freedom. And that means we've got to do the hard work.
So we need to all stand up. We all need to stand for our freedom, our liberty, and, stand up for our kids, for crying out loud. They're the next generation that's going to pay heavily for this.
Patrick! Oh my God,
yeah, I don't think I need that. Since it's like the first music video ever,
Okay, so let me ask you guys another question. Where do you think the line between like paranoia and like healthy skepticism is?
Good question.
Well, that depends on your mental health. It really is dependent on your intelligence and your spiritual strength, your capacity.
Yeah.
I look at spirituality as capacity. Like
I like that.
Some people cannot handle keeping their mind open. It takes effort to keep your mind open. Once
I
it's
see what you're saying.
closed. So it's natural for the mind to spring closed. So there's very few things that you know completely. Like you don't know what's making the sun burn.
Yeah.
They
don't
tell
really know
you, so you keep a little part of your mind open. They'll tell you, and you have working hypothesis.
Man, you can keep asking why.
Working hypothesis is closing your mind a little bit, but not putting a lock on it. It's like I'm going to work with this, and I gotta like make it a little bit more solid so I can work with it. And then if it don't pan out, you'll be able to jettison. But the trouble now is people attach to hypotheses that should be working hypotheses, and they just attach to it emotionally.
For me, I guess it was kind of just like realizing how far back all like that whole agenda